Welcome to our 8th Audi Innovation Series. As we wrap up the 2021 season of our speaker series, we reflect on an incredible year of discussions with some of the world's most innovative creators and thinkers. We remain committed to bringing these meaningful conversations to Canadians, and we look forward to bringing you even more in the new year. The Audi Innovation Series has featured speakers from sports, entertainment, technology, fashion, film, and today we welcome one of the most influential journalists and authors of our time. Whether you've attended previous events or you're joining us for the very first time, we can't wait to share this latest conversation with you. Today, we are so honored to welcome Mr. Bob Woodward to the Audi Innovation Series stage. He is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and has written more nonfiction bestsellers than any other contemporary author. His approach to investigative journalism, his integrity, and his storytelling have rightly earned him the reputation as one of the world's most influential journalists. We're also pleased to welcome Deval Brown as today's moderator. Deval has worked as a reporter and correspondent for some of Canada's most beloved shows and brings his charisma and curiosity to every conversation. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Bob Woodward and Deval Brown. Enjoy.
All right, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us on the Audi Innovation stage. Bob Woodward, I'm Deval Brown. It's an absolute pleasure to meet you, and you are probably best known for obviously breaking the Watergate scandal, a young journalist at the time, but you've forged such a legendary career since then, an investigative reporter, Pulitzer Award-winning reporter and author, captured pretty much every U.S. presidential history and what they've been doing over the past few decades. At this point, Bob, what is your motivation? What motivates you now?
Well, being a journalist is the best job in the United States, probably the best job on the globe. You get to make momentary entries into people's lives when they're interesting. If you're a doctor or a lawyer, you have clients and you're stuck. A journalist is trying to deal with what's going on, and I think the working atmosphere is critical, and at the Washington Post, that atmosphere is independence, even independence within the institution. We have a saying at the Washington Post, all good work is done in defiance of management. And that means don't break the rules, don't break the law, but it means be independent, always be pushing. And going back to Watergate, when Ben Bradley was the editor, he created that sense of go for it. He's very suspicious about government, particularly in the hidden nature of what government was doing. So if you could be aggressive, and I think the message from him was don't be timid. And I think there's too much timidity in too many institutions in the United States, in the world. And if you can create that environment of defy management, in other words, always lead management, don't let them lead you. The great editors in the newspaper business and television producers realize they do not know what's going on. The reporters, the frontline people are the ones that are out in the real world and accept the authority, if you will, of the reporter.
Now, when you look at journalism nowadays, and you're mentioning kind of the acceptance and defying that management and leading them, when you look at technology within journalism, people bringing out their cell phones, social media, do you think that helps or hurts what's happening?
Yeah, that's an important question. First of all, it's there. It's not going to go away. So you have to deal with it. The impatience and speed of the internet defeats really getting to the bottom of things. People want, as you say, you go on your cell phone, you look at, what's the latest? Give me one sentence. Well, one sentence, even one paragraph, is not enough. You really have to explain often complicated situations, and to reduce those to a soundbite is a distortion. And so in a sense, the internet can be an impediment to finding out what's really going on. People think they know because they see this one sentence description.
And Bob, you know, when you talk about people on either side there, as an investigative journalist, you have to stay objective. How do you remain objective while doing that and not getting kind of skewed one way or the other?
Objectivity actually works in my business, and you become skeptical of true believers on the left, true believers on the right, and my colleague Robert Costa has a saying which he has posted over his computer, and that is, assume nothing. And that is good advice for a journalist. In other words, the political context is important, but what are the facts? What really happened? Find participants, firsthand witnesses, as we were on this book on Trump, the 21st book I have done, going back to the first book I did in the 1970s with Carl Bernstein, All the President's Men.
And yeah, this is another bestseller for you. And when you are talking to these sources, there's several people quoted as saying, Bob has a way of getting people to spill what they shouldn't be spilling. What is it that you're doing, or the questions you're asking, that get grown adults to maybe tell you secrets they shouldn't be telling you?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, there are no secrets that they shouldn't be telling me. I want to know everything, and I think the key is patience. And again, bringing that attitude, I'm trying to find out the facts, trying to dig into it. I think how you approach these things is really, really important. Katharine Graham, who was the owner and the publisher of the Washington Post in the 70s during Watergate, after Nixon resigned, she wrote a memo, or it was actually just a handwritten note on yellow legal pad. This is a woman who had more stationery than anyone, but we got a yellow legal page, and it was, Dear Carl and Bob, now Nixon's resigned, you did some of the stories. Don't start thinking too highly of yourselves. And then she said, let me give you some advice. And the advice is, beware the demon pomposity. The demon pomposity stalks the halls of journalists, of Wall Street, of politicians, you name it. It is an affliction of every profession, and I think you have to realize that if you approach things with, this is the only way, a kind of smugness, this is the way to look at things. We see this in politicians in the United States on the left and the right. This is it, this is the truth. Well, the truth takes, again, editor at the Post, Ben Bradley said, the truth emerges. Sometimes it takes days, weeks, months, even years, even decades to find out what really happened, the full story. With that knowledge and sense of you've got to be patient and listen, I will go interview people, and it's open-ended. I never have ended an important interview. There are always more questions, there are always more things you can learn from people, and then go back again and again, so you don't just absorb their talking points, but try to layer it and make it clear you're there to understand their point of view.
And with that comes a lot of risk in what you have to do, and that's where this next question is. And the Audi Innovation Series centers around creativity, innovation, risk-taking. Your career, it's fair to say, has taken a lot of courage, and you may have had to sacrifice some of your personal relationships at times. Do you consider yourself a risk taker?
Well, you live, when you're in journalism, you're in the world of risk because you're dealing with contested fact. And people will say these are the facts, others will say those are the facts, and so they're not going to be happy often if you dig into it. But I've had the good fortune of 50 years working at the Washington Post, which is an institution that insists on risk. It is owned, the Washington Post is owned by Jeff Bezos, the CEO, the creator of Amazon. He lives in risk. He's taken business risk, taken what was a bookstore in his garage to the biggest, most important, defining enterprise, certainly in the United States and probably in the globe. So risk doesn't mean you're just gonna, let's wing it or let's take chances unnecessarily. It is, I believe my method in talking to people, getting documents, getting notes, can stand up to what will be the inevitable denial and intense controversy that emerges if you really find out what happened.
Was there ever an investigation that you said, I'm not going to get involved in because of that risk, maybe?
Well, it's a risk measured against other risks. For instance, for decades, less so recently, but back in the 1970s, people would write and call and say, investigate the Kennedy assassination, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963. And the claim was others were involved, that we didn't get the whole story. And so I would say to him or her who was calling or sending a letter, I would say, okay, tell me who was involved. Give me the name of that person. Let me contact that person. I will listen. And all of the Kennedy assassination conspiracy theories were built on a presumption of, well, this must be the case. And they never gave me a name. I never had to make a call or do an interview because they did not have a participant or somebody who was a witness who I can talk to as a journalist.
Now, you've done a lot, as we mentioned, all the books, the awards, and I know you don't do it for the awards, you do it for the truth to get out there. Do you have one moment that is the greatest for you in your professional career and maybe one from your personal side of things?
Well, I guess it goes back to Watergate when the source we had, Deep Throat, who finally was identified as Mark Felt, the number 2 in the FBI, in the underground parking garage in 1973, said, essentially, you aren't listening, you don't get it. The Watergate burglary was only one part of a massive campaign of sabotage and espionage directed at the Democrats. And here is how you can unwind it.
Bob, I know we don't have much time left here, and I just want to ask people that want to be the next Bob Woodward. You know, we mentioned technology a little bit earlier and how it has changed everything, but what advice would you give to those journalists that want to follow in your footsteps, that want to find out the truth and kind of push forward what's going on in our world?
Well, it's kind of this idea of don't be timid, be very aggressive. I used to have a sign that I'd put above reporters' computers that was FAA, that meant focus, act aggressively. Don't do 10 things at once. Focus on one thing, and when you do that, do it aggressively, go knock on doors, persist, go to the scene, look at the story. Early in my career, I had a story about some serious health violations in a hotel restaurant, and I had the hotel wrong, and it was not, in a way understandable, but having something wrong is never understandable. And I had an editor who said to me, get your fat rear end out of your chair and go to the hotel. And I discovered doing that I had the wrong hotel. So I will go to the White House, the Situation Room in the White House, and get a description of where does the president sit, what video screens do they have, what kind of chairs they're like, just to understand the environment. I think it is critical in any story.
We thank you so much on behalf of Audi and myself. Appreciate your stories and your knowledge today, and your continued search for truth and to get all the information out there.
Or
for
the
all of us.
best obtainable version of the truth, because
That's it.
the
Yeah,
truth
true.
can be out there and it's not obtainable. You don't get there.
Well, we appreciate you always trying to strive and get that for us. Bob, thank you so much. What a great conversation. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
That wraps our discussion for today. A sincere thanks to Mr. Bob Woodward for letting us into the world of investigative journalism and sharing his profound experiences with us. And thank you to Devo Brown for moderating today's discussion. I hope you've enjoyed today's conversation and truly look forward to seeing you at the next Innovation Series.